messed about, the brain. And it's something that's really difficult to quantify. And hopefully we can find some kind of solution. But there's guys who are more knowledgeable than me, well, not many, in a medical sense, that could give us an opinion.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we've got Dr. Sam Barke, who's going to join us on Skype. Dr. Sam, thank you for joining us on Rugby tonight. For people that don't know, could you just tell us a little bit about your background and your credentials with regards to injuries and concussion?
Sure. So I'm a sports doctor, which means I look after injured sports people, and medical director of Return2Play, which is a sports medicine company that looks to take the lessons that have been learned in elite sport and deploy those to grassroots, really to allow players of all ages and standards to access good care. And as you'd imagine, over the last few years, concussion has become a major.
Exactly that. I mean, we've been speaking about concussion here, and it seems to be it's not a hot talking point, it has been for a few years, but what can you tell us for certain about the effects of repeated knocks to the head and the effects it has to players?
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer, because the reality is the jury's still out a bit on that. I think the first thing to say is the fact that we're talking about it as much as we are now, the fact that we're scrutinising the decisions that are being made on pitches, we saw that on Saturday with Johnny May, is a hugely positive thing and shows how far we've come in a really short period of time. As Sam was saying, it wasn't that long ago when we weren't really paying much attention to these injuries, and the fact that we are now is fantastic. And there is undoubtedly a lot more work to be done, and rugby's really leading the way in that, in acknowledging that there are these issues and investing into that and investing in research. And that's hugely important because, as I say, there are many unanswered questions still. What we do know is that there is absolutely no doubt that managing concussions properly significantly reduces risk, and that's the message that needs to be pushed out to all levels of the game, really.
I think that's absolutely right, Sam, and I think one of the things we need to pick up on there is fact. There's an awful lot of scaremongering going on from someone who loves the game and only wants the best for rugby, but also for young people being enticed into the sport and parents not wanting to stop their children from playing it. A few examples. Sam Peters in April 2018 wrote, "With concussions now occurring at a rate of 20.9 per 1,000 hours, pro rugby's head injury risk is comparable to boxing." It's a bit of a sweeping statement. We don't need those. There's no clarification that comes with that. There's no reference to the right data. And I think that the science behind it should come to the fore rather than the narrative. Do you not agree?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always difficult when we look at stats on their own to make a judgment. And I think it's very easy when we look at injury data to talk about the scary things, and it's right that we acknowledge that there are risks, but what we often forget to talk about is all the benefits of sport and the benefits of rugby that most of us are fully aware exist, but far harder to quantify, whereas risks, like we're talking about there, that risk of over 20 concussions per 1,000 playing hours is an easy stat to put out there. How applicable that is to the whole of rugby, who knows? Our data from schools suggests that the rate's down to sort of 3-4 per 1,000, so vastly different from professional sport. And I think while we need to acknowledge risks, we also need to accept that we don't have all the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a huge amount to try and alleviate any element of risk as much as you can in a contact sport. But new technology, we're hearing about saliva testing. What can you tell us about it, and what stage are we at for it to actually being used on pitches?
So really early. It's in early research phases. So we don't have a lot of data yet on it. But lots of progress and exciting times ahead. On those sort of developments.
Sam, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on.